Good morning, everybody. Please leave comments in the comments section. Hit like and subscribe. This is Tom and the Servant for another Raw Talk. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Steve.
That's the man
Hey, guys.
right there.
Good evening, Adam.
How you doing, guys? So I just jumped out of Nathan's hangout there for the
Yeah,
so
it figures is right at 9 o'clock. I mean, I have the busiest 30 minutes of my day, of my week.
what time is it there?
Yeah, I've been really busy at work, so
It's like 9 o'clock his time, and then it's like 7 o'clock my time.
at 9:30 now.
Okay, and 7:30 here in Cali.
Yeah.
Morning,
Well,
I'm in
guys.
I'm in California. He's in Wisconsin.
Oh, good morning, gentlemen.
Well, Tom has me up at like 3:45 every morning, so I just sometimes don't even go to sleep, and
Don't bother.
No rest for the weary, right, Adam?
Oh
that's
yeah.
right. We'll
Oh,
have
no.
plenty of time to rest in heaven.
3:45 is not the morning; it's a late night.
Right, yeah. People
Adam,
are
you're
just
the only
getting
guy
back
I
in
know
line.
that's less than
Timberland.
me.
Yep, for sure, for sure.
Well,
So
yeah,
what's on tap
couple
today?
things I
What's the
wanted to, a couple questions I wanted to just kind of ask you guys. Like one of them would be like, what was about your number one evidence that the Earth is flat, and then to back that up, what is the like your best evidence that made you not believe in gravity anymore? And Adam, of course, you're the star here today, so you're gonna have to answer first.
yep.
Okay, flat Earth one. It's got to be Black Swan now. Um, for me, it's
How about in the beginning though?
well, I was maths, so it was again similar sort of thing, but it was the lack of curvature, right?
Right,
Right.
right.
So because that's how I started doing curvature equations,
So
trying to
like,
figure
what
this
got
out.
you? What got you into the subject? Like, what made you curious to even look at it? You know?
One of my common law friends, I was out on a who was I? Dan, was it some meeting anyway, some common law meeting, and they just said, I know you're a geek. This will do your head in. The Earth's flat, so he left that with me. And obviously, like everybody, you go off to disprove it first, don't you? Nah, no, no, I'll
Right.
just, um, so that kind of got me into into looking into it, just trying to quickly disprove it because
Right.
big sci-fi fan, that And whilst by that point I was well against evolution and the likes, you know what I mean, and getting quite spiritual again. I wasn't even thinking flat Earth, so. But it wasn't. I didn't stumble across a YouTube video or anything like that awakened me. It was a guy called Kai Holloway. Shout out Kai. Um, so yeah, it was him that got me into it. But yeah, so for me, it was. I suppose it was curvature.
Well, so when you got to a point where you were like weighing it, like, okay, there's seems to be a lot of evidence that the Earth is flat, but it's still a hard kind of concept to get your head around, right? Like, what tipped you over the edge, right? Like, now I'm for sure this is there's no going back. Like now I'm sure that it's flat. Like, was it like the NASA fakery, or was it the stories about Antarctica and who's allowed to travel, or the plane flights? Like, was there anything that like sealed it? Like, okay, it's impossible to be a ball at this point.
Well, again, lack of curvature was the under
Yeah,
that visual and that being what again you're talking water always finds its level. So back
Right.
there, Bedford levels, reading all that sort of stuff and looking at that and just closing your eyes, remembering scenes. It's not until you get that idea put in your head, always your mind apologizes for it. If especially your sci-fi, everything's painted in your mind on a ball, and you
Right.
don't question it. But suddenly, when you do everything, you start to reanalyze, don't you? And but it was water being flat and that lack of curvature.
Yeah,
Um,
I have to totally agree. That's what got me, even to this day, even though that black swan is by far undeniable proof. It just show me the curve anywhere. I went back when I first realized, the Earth was flat. I got a picture. Back in the 90s, I was up in Alaska for a few weeks visiting a brother of mine, and we were I took pictures of Mount McKinley, which was 200 miles away. Now, granted, I couldn't see the base of it, okay, but it wasn't tilted backwards. Nothing, no pictures at any distances, anything actually leaning backwards like it's coming off, over the curve, behind the curve, I should say. You can never see that picture. Why not? You know what I mean? There should be some tilt or some angle to that mountain at 200 miles away. There's a lot of curvature there.
Right, and especially at a distance that far, Tom, like the curve accumulates, right? Because you're going away and down, so
Yes,
it's squares, so it should be at an angle that is so far leaning back at that distance, that even at that point, that would, if the curve didn't hide it, the angle should,
right.
I mean, at a certain distance,
And you'd see some angle of that mountain. That mountain wouldn't be coming straight up.
Yeah. Well, did that confirm anything for you spiritually, Adam? Like when you were confident, okay, so the earth is flat, it's motionless, this is the only place to exist. We've been lied to. That's a pretty big lie. Like, did that actually like do anything to help your spiritual position where you were at?
um, yes, yeah. I think, like I said, I'd alluded. I'd already accepted a creator um, through, I'd say, kind of poo-pooing evolution. Um, but when you do realise it's flat, um, it's a different reality. Realising a creator is one thing, but realising how special we are, that we are the same
Right.
things, and that's something that Flat Earth definitely solidifies. Um, you can be, there's lots of New Age people that are into, all sorts of nuances. Do you know what I mean? But they're not anything special. But for me, when you do accept a flat Earth, then it kind of forces you to be special.
Right. Yeah. It takes the idea that God may or may not exist out of the picture. It's like, okay, well, if we're in a snow globe or, something flat and central, right? Then there's no doubt that there is a creator, at that point, Like I know you're taking a lot of jumps, but like you will get there if you follow that consistency, you know what I mean? And so like I think like for me like when I was first looking at flat earth, right, I was really looking like, oh, okay, I want to get into a conspiracy, I like that kind of thing, and so I was looking at the moon stuff, right, and all this stuff from Jeranism popped up, and he does such great NASA stuff, right, and pointing out the fakery and the video footage stuff that I wouldn't be able to spot, right? And so now the regular moon missions were pretty easy, right? Like, okay, now looking at that stuff, it looks fake, right? But the more I got into it, I'm like, well, wow, I mean, if they faked that 6 times, right, and never been back, right? I wonder what's up with that, right? Well, all this flat Earth stuff kept popping up, and I clicked on an Eric Dubé, and I'm glad I did, because the way Eric described it, like it clicked in my mind, because I'm thinking of space, a disk in space, right? Like like I still couldn't conceive of like where the other planets were and all that stuff. And so when Eric said the statement, Earth is the only place to exist, right? That right there like helped me understand what we were talking about. That the Earth was everything, and the nighttime sky was just lights on our roof for us, you know. And like I kept going back and forth, right, trying to look for a reason to believe in the ball, you know, any reason to go back to even though it wouldn't have been justified. I was like, okay, well, anything that shows me that we're on a ball, I'm going back to the ball. I couldn't find nothing, you know, anything. And so when I looked at the NASA stuff, the recent NASA stuff, and saw all the fakery and them being on wires and them glitching out and all that, it just made it solid for me. Like oh my God, man, this is flat. I'm 100% sure. Like I wasn't even like kind of sure. It's like I knew it was flat. You know, nothing you could have told me could have got me back to the ball side at that point.
Well, that's what was. You would. I'll share the picture again.
Mm-hmm.
So you're
Yeah, that was
saying,
an awesome picture you had up there, Adam.
well, this was my first attempt many years ago, and this is trying to get my head around. So this is just geometric. So the first thing I did, and this was before the YouTubers, it might still be out there. It was a guy called Cesar, German guy. There weren't many YouTubers, and I'd done this for him. I was just looking for people to talk to about
Okay.
flat Earth. There weren't
Right.
like there weren't the thing Jeremy was maybe about, but you know. So I remember doing this, and this was just trying to work out, trying to do a formula for drop, because we had this thing here that is still kicking around, this Pythagorean stuff.
Right.
And
Right.
I did that first of all, and it's wrong, because what it doesn't do is take into magnitude, and you have to take R into consideration when you're calculating the drop relative to travel along the circumference. And this worked at like 45, 90 degrees and multiples of, but not in the small bits, which is interesting
Okay.
mathematically. But so there was that. So then I went from there. That's magnets, and then this is the actual proper derivation. Um,
I like how you're doing this because the audience can see this while this is going on. That's cool.
Yes.
cool. So this is what I then moved to, which was to try and figure out a way of doing it by plotting it as vectors. Um, so
Oh, I see. So like if you're on an airplane, you
yes,
can't make up for all that curvature at once. You'd hit the ground.
well
You'd have to do it
yeah,
gradually.
it was plotting it in terms. So in terms of what I was looking at exploring what circles are. So
Right.
mathematically, in terms of a formula, and I stumbled across the derivation for a circle, which is based on an infinite-sided polygon. It's kind of a mathematical proof. So it was
Oh,
working from that.
magnitude. Okay. Go ahead.
So
Sorry.
if you can express everything as a polygon, a circle as a polygon, then you can express everything as a straight line. So you could express it as a vector. So then you could calculate by vector calculations the amount of drop just based on adding up the vectors, which is what these spreadsheets do. So it was just a way of calculating drop, basically.
So basically, no matter what you do per mile, you still have to do the A to B accumulated drop.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't do 8 inches per mile in a gradual way.
Um,
You would have to make up.
yes,
You'd have to
you
make
have
up
to
the A
do.
to B. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
If you don't want to accumulate, i.e., if you're flying in a straight line vector, if you don't want to accumulate, then you have to nose down it by or deal with 8 inches per mile. If you don't deal with it in that mile, you've got 3 foot to deal with that in 2 miles. If you don't deal with it in 3 miles, you've got 10. You know what I mean?
6.
So on. It
Right.
Yeah.
accumulates exponent, well, by a curve, by the size of the curve. So based on your travel. So that was that was that to calculate that, and then that's when I've probably not got the full derivation, but
So just to be clear to the audience, when you're at 3 miles, right, you're looking at 6 feet, right? But when you're at 10 miles, you're looking at 66 feet. So it's not just 8 inches per mile. It will accumulate if you don't nose down every mile.
It's 8 inches per mile squared.
Right. Squared, right. If you
A
don't
mile squared, yeah.
right, so if you don't account for it in the as you're going, it will accumulate very fast.
yes,
Very fast at
it
500
accumulates
miles an hour.
based on. Well, that's what I was trying to figure out, that rate of accumulation. Now, that rate is based on the R value, because the size of the ball or circle,
Hmm.
that
Right.
it means you get less drop per mile travelled if it's a bigger ball. So that's what I was trying to figure out. So this is what this final derivation is. I won't bore you with it. There's a presentation out there on it, but this is the original. I'm looking because I've not seen this for years. I just bumbled into my old Google Drive
Oh,
looking
this
for
is
that. But this is
beautiful.
the original derivation done in Italy on holiday when I was bored. So this is helping me deriving the formula. So you do then get actually a formula you can use, guys, um,
Okay.
which is this,
So
that the drop is equal to the R value minus the R value times the cosine of the distance multiplied by 0.008993261, and R being um,
so that makes it like a little over 7 inches a mile then. 7
well,
inches per mile square.
this is calculated in kilometers, look, but if you do everything
Okay.
metrically, then this is accurate for any numbers you then want to input. So whatever distance you're traveling along your ball, along your
Okay. Yep.
circumference, you can input it into that formula, 6371 minus 6371 times the cosine of the distance multiplied 0.009, sufficient, I suppose. But that'll then give you an accurate drop value.
Now, see, when I first was looking at this curvature formula, what it said on Wikipedia was it was 8 inches per mile without squaring the distance, like as if we're like on a slant. You know what I mean? And so if you didn't know any better, you would think, okay, well that's just not that much curvature to deal with. But if that's only if you're going in a slant. But to
Yeah, once you
actually
square that mile, it starts dropping big time.
huge, because and then that's what QE was talking about when he was talking about like elevation drop from point to point. Like I know that the ballers were saying, okay, well from the surface up is elevation, right? Or from the center of the earth up is elevation, but you still have to deal with that tangent line from your feet down and away from you. Like you can't say that you don't have any elevation with in respects of the curve of the earth, because everywhere you go is level, right? They tried to make it sound like elevation is from the surface and up without dealing with that distance. But you have to deal with that distance. It has to drop down and away from you at a little less than 8 inches per mile square.
Yeah, the vectors is a good way of, if you think of, because the way in which it works, if you look at this, that what happens, and this is all from the perspective of the start point. So that first kilometre that you travel, that 1 kilometre vector that's going to make up the ball, it drops away from you at 0.0009 degrees down to make the ball. Now the second kilometre, it then drops off of that line by another 0.009. So that's your 8 inches every single mile. But in relation to the first point, that second kilometre is now bending at an angle relative to the start point of 0.0018. So it's twice the angle.
Ah,
Now the
Right.
third
right.
one, even though it only goes down another 0.009, is now
Really?
in relation to the start point of 0.0027, and so on. So each next vector angle increases itself by 0.009 cumulatively, not just, that's what builds the ball, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Right. Yes. totally get it.
So that's what this is here. You can see these are the decimals are missing, but
And
Yeah,
so
because if
like,
it doesn't do that, you wouldn't have a ball.
yeah.
yeah, can't have a shape.
It
Yeah,
would be
because
round.
that's what
Otherwise,
these
you get
ball
like
that's
say straight line.
well, that's what these ballers
You'd get a
don't
flat
get
Earth.
is well, that's what these ballers don't get is like if you don't have a geometric horizon, right? If then you don't have a geometric shape. Like a sphere is a shape, right? So
Yeah.
you there has to be consequences to that shape. And it should be things dropping off everywhere, you know? It should
Yes.
be very apparent that we live on a ball, you know? And the thing with the black swan is people deal with the black swan like it's a one off, like we got lucky one day. But you could really go out and get black swan images routinely. You
Right.
would have trouble finding an image that supports their claim,
Well, not
you
only
know?
that, if you started going back and start looking at your own pictures you've taken, you'd probably be shocked at how many black swans you have. Every
Right,
one of us, and didn't realize it. You know what I mean?
right. Where the horizon was behind the object, you know?
Yes.
That's a good point, Tom. And so I always like think of these ballers when they start talking about, well, if there's no atmosphere, then that's when we would see our geometric horizon. Well, you know, there's never a situation where there's no atmosphere. So how did they measure it in the first instance, you know? And so without any presuppositions, you can't, you know?
Right.
And so like their argument is so weak at this point that I wonder why we're even like I know we're probably debating it mostly for the audience sakes, right? For the new people to get it, you know? But really in reality this debate is so dead. Like no educated person would that's serious about their life would come on and debate this topic like this. You know?
Right. I got
Could you
another
imagine?
question
Sure.
for Adam.
Oh.
Not to change the subject, but I'm going to.
Yeah. No, good.
Okay. What is your take, if there is such a thing? Because now I'm not 100% sure. I don't believe there is, but on low Earth orbit, is there such a thing? Like, I don't believe space is real, but even people who are flat earthers and believing space isn't real still kind of believe there's stuff up there orbiting in like a
Well,
low Earth type of
well,
thing. What is your take on that?
define orbit.
I honestly, I can't. And I guess the guy I'm referring to is Mark Sargent.
Well, orbit would imply travel around a ball. So if
Okay.
that's your question, then I would flatly deny that. If you're
Okay.
asking, are there things that are in our atmosphere which complete a circular route similar to the path of the sun, or hold a particular place over particular locations that form a network, yeah, that would seem not outside the realms of probability. Um,
But they got to be propelled by some type of propellant.
well, they have to be held up there by something, and
Right.
uh, a balloon would seem the sensible thing. I
Yes.
think if you're going to use a balloon long term, you wouldn't necessarily make it out of uh, poly, but a rubber
Right.
balloon. I think you could make something a lot more long lasting and stable that we would have the ability to stay up there for longer periods. Um,
Okay.
Maybe that's why NASA is such a big user of helium.
Right. Right. No, totally agree. I totally agree.
Well, the thing is, what a huge fraud that is, right? Because you know, you're saying that, like, or you know, they're saying that, like, okay, well, it's 150 million to put this satellite in orbit, but you know, it's really going to cost them under 100 grand to put a balloon up, you know, and just the amount of fraud, right, on money that they can print, you know, whenever they want. There's no limits of what they can do, right? They can print as much as they want, but just the idea that they tax us for those space missions and like when I saw uh you know clips of the Space Force and all that stuff, that's embarrassing to me, you know, that it's almost it's insulting to me that like that this is where we are now with this, you know, that this is being spoke about as like something that's real, in today's climate, with the arguments being the way they are, you know.
So the
Sure.
the money argument is an odd one because money's just what they use to manipulate the system. It's not something they're interested in collecting themselves. That's not what they're after. Like you said, they can print as much as they want. It's just a way of regulating us, the financial system.
It's such a horrible manipulation, and I can't think of another reason why they would lie, right? Because like you said, I don't think it's really the money either. But like I really do think it's like the only reason that they're doing it is to hide the creator from us, and it has to be in some kind of demonic way,
Sure,
you
to
know,
enslave you, to do their work, their dirty
you
work
know.
for them.
But then it calls into question that, like, okay, so then I stopped believing that like people are individual people that, grew up with a backstory like me and became a senator, Like I've given up on all that as an idea. Like I'm thinking, that the people that are in charge are of a certain bloodline and or of a certain class of people, and it's just going to be a generational thing passed through them, their special club. You know what I mean? And then it like gets into the scenario like, well, like how many of us are there? Do they outnumber us? Those types of conspiracies pop up to me, as being significant.
They
Do you
don't
have any?
outnumber us, but they're in the positions of the power, so they think.
Yeah, like how many do you think there are? And like how do you think that those, like, all the celebrities are chosen, and politicians, I mean, worldwide? I mean, do you think that a person born, like, say, a regular lifestyle could just become one of these people with a big platform? Because it
Oh
doesn't seem like it.
no,
What's your opinion on that, Adam?
I think they hide it in plain sight. It's called the Bilderberg Group.
Hmm.
It's the Committee of 300. It's the royal families. They're
And
there.
so do you
Whether
do you
they're the
think?
ultimate heads, I doubt very much. I think you'd have to look at things like titles like the Black Pope, people that are anonymous
Right.
that still hold the. These are the same groups, guys. These are the same groups from the black nobility that then take over and pervert things like the Illuminati, which start out positive. They're they're not bad institutions at inception. They're things to fight. It's a bit like the Flat Earth Society or the Flat Earthers in 100 years. It'll be corrupted. If it's still not resolved, it'll be co-opted. They've worked through the royal families, those bloodlines, and then into what you see in the turn of the late 1800s, the movement to the institutionalised of the financial royal families. So in the States, you've got the Rockefellers, the Wahlbergs, all those sorts of things. Over here, um, you've still got the royal family in Britain. Britain's a funny place, but it's just that transference along those bloodlines. But they're the same ones that
Yeah.
this is their Machiavellian plan, isn't it? This is their plan. Isn't the next 10 years? It's the next two, three
100
hundred.
years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Um,
And it's like you wonder, like, like, so when they have children and they're trying to push their own children to, fill these prominent positions, right? Do these kids have a choice? I mean, I know that God is fair, and I'm just wondering, like what do these kids of these families go through in order to inherit this type of power and platform,
Well,
Like,
it's like all of us growing up believing in the spinning ball. I mean, you're just taught it, and they're taught those things. Not the spinning ball thing, but like as far as being in power, they're taught and growing up to learn how to rule and to enslave people. I mean,
Mhm.
when they become adults, I mean, they have decisions they have to make to continue to be that or to not. Just like you had a choice to make to believe in the ball or the flat Earth.
True. It's a tough spot though to be in, to be
Yes, it
honest,
is.
for these kids, because it's like here's everything on a spoon, things that you're used to having, amenities that once you've had them for a long time, it's hard to live without.
Power
And
and
then
money.
You,
right, and then to
you've,
to
you've
go
probably
ahead,
got to
Adam.
think this isn't a normal child that's being asked to do. These are kids that will be brought up just like to be taught, like we're all taught up, and we believe the ball, even though we question it. If you're brought up to believe that you are superior, that the
Yep.
people you will rule over are cattle, and that by your religion that this is how you should treat the cattle, that they're there for this purpose, then if you're brought up in that, then it becomes a lot easier for your psychopathy to take over, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Absolutely. Well said. Absolutely.
yeah, very good. It just makes me wonder, like how many of us are gonna really wake up? How many of us are there really out there? Because I'm not outspoken on Facebook to my family and friends and stuff, right? Like about flat Earth and stuff. So I know that there's a lot of flat earthers that aren't real outspoken, right? It doesn't mean they don't exist. It's just that you know it would be nice if we knew how big this community really was to see what kind of leverage we could really put on the world. But what it looks like now is that like now that I start seeing things in Revelation start to happen, right? It's like, okay, well, maybe this is just the way the story is and it just will happen this way. And but it makes you question what choices you really ever did have.
I, whether the end's coming or not, only God knows that. I don't
Right,
think He'd want us to behave in a way as if we sit about waiting for that to happen. So none of
right.
the ways in which Jesus showed us to live our lives are
Amen.
necessary. I think that's, for me, we may be lucky enough for that thing to happen in our time, whatever that is, well, however you view what it is. We may not, but that's not, to me, what you should be focusing on. You should be focusing on how
True.
you should be living your life and how you've been demonstrated to live your
I
life.
mean, I think when I was going like real deep down that path, um, like I know that the parable of the oil and the lamps, have your lampstands ready for God to return, right? To be ready. But the parable of the talents is right after that, meaning, that doesn't mean that you just look at the sky, wait for God, but be ready and then use the talents that you've got to do what work you think you need to do on earth, until his return. And
Yeah,
so
and
it
keep
did.
living. Oh, I'm sorry,
No,
Steve.
no, well, I mean, it made me change a lot of what my idea of my purpose is. Tom, what do you think?
Right. Well, yeah, I
Yeah,
was just gonna say, since even all this stuff came out, I haven't changed my life one bit other than I've gotten closer to God. I just keep
yeah,
living my life, doing what I have to do, take care of my family, try to reach out to as many people that'll listen. Me and you doing this show, getting to meet new people, obviously online like Adam and stuff like that. I mean,
yeah,
it's a blessing, and I'm not gonna sit
it
in my
is.
bedroom in a dark closet waiting for Christ to come. I'm going to keep doing what He wants me to do, keep living my
Yeah.
life. And when it happens, it happens. We got to just keep running that race to the finish line.
Well, this is really the first time in my lifetime that like I met people like you and Adam and like people that like will admit when they're wrong, change when they're not doing something right. Like most people just dig in, you know, have a hard time answering a yes or no question,
Right.
won't concede anything, especially these ballers. It's like I know a lot of people that act like that my brother's one of those people who won't apologize for anything. It's like I've met more people like me in this flat Earth community than I've met my whole life. I've always just felt out of place.
Right.
You
Let
know.
me ask Adam one more question, then I have to go. Um,
Okay.
since this whole last couple of month event has occurred, have you noticed people's attitudes changing? And like, because the one thing I've noticed is how rude people have become. People that won't even wave at you when you drive by, they'll stare right at you or turn their head when you. Have you noticed anything different with people's attitudes or mindsets about stuff, Adam?
I think everybody. I think there was an initial bit of the odd person because obviously I work in a pharmacy, so I've been on the at work every day. From the UK has probably had more lockdown than you guys, so there was a bit of aggressive kookiness early on, but actually most normal people are demonstrating a bit of community, a bit of spirit, a bit of realizing it's nobody's fault. As much as the state's trying to aggravate you, we're getting on with things and smiling and
That's
and
good to hear.
being nice with each other. And the amount of times that I get, people say just as they're leaving, thanks for being here. You know, it,
Yeah.
it's lovely. I've felt an upturning, like I say, love, community, whatever you want to call it. Um, there's always the odd knobhead, though, isn't there? But you
Right.
can't. But generally, no, I would say if you see someone on the street, it's you don't. But I've met a lot of people. I just think people are being that little bit nicer. Um, but
Dear Heavenly Father, I turn to you today. I repent of all my sins. I believe that your Son, Jesus Christ, died on the cross for my sins and was resurrected to life on the third day. And forevermore he lives. Father, I ask of you to baptize me with the Holy Spirit right now. Change my heart and renew my spirit. I invite you, Jesus, to enter into my heart. Change me, save me, and be the Lord of my life. Right now, in your mighty name, I pray. Amen.
Amen.